Come on, pal. With my dog, as usual. My puppy. Yeah. I was going to let him off the lead, but there's quite a few people walking about. Because they're taking advantage of the Highland weather, I guess. I think this is Scotland wide though, to be fair, but especially up here, it's a rarity, so I can see why people are taking advantage of it. Just a couple of shout outs before I get into what I was going to speak about in this video. First and foremost to Scott Webb, because a while ago now the guy sent me a GoPro. Yeah, all the bits and bobs that come with it and whatnot. And just sort of like due to like everything that was going on with me privately, I never really kind of got around to using it. And if you listen to this, mate, I was fucking about with it the day before I took my dog out. I don't have a clue how to work it. So I was going to take a bit of time. I was pissing about and it just wasn't really, I don't know. I'll get there, man. Because for anybody that doesn't know, most people that like, apart from like my new subscribers, but most people that have known me for a while know that I'm really into photography. Have been for fucking years. Like I like hiking and I like photography. And I don't know if the channel's self-destructed yet, because that's a setting on Telegram. If it's inactive for long enough, channels have a tendency to delete. And I have a channel, or had potentially, called Tuchter and His Dog, which was me and my dog went out for years. Since about 2021, I think. Going to all the different locks and stuff around the Highlands. And I'm kind of worried that the channel might get deleted. I need to go back on at some point. But I wanted to just say spot on to him. Obviously sent me a camera, just not really sure if I can work it. Second person I want to give a wee shout out to before I get into this video is Scott Arnold. He's been in touch with me quite a few times recently, and given the absolute character assassination of me the past several months, it's just nice to speak to a pal, you know. So there is that. And yeah, I will pause this now or stop it and then record what I really want to speak about then. Yeah. Just give my wee skip. Good boy. You get the rest in a minute, probably. So, the article in question is from the 7th of April, 2025. PA Media. The title, I will post this in the description. The title is as follows. Right, see, I've got some notes here. John Swinney says his summit to counter populism is above party politics. Okay? And one of the paragraphs is quoted as saying, sorry, it goes as follows. He said he wanted to bring people from across Scotland's mainstreams together to protect Scottish values, saying these were, and then it's quoted, threatened by the rise of populism. So just to repeat that, he said he wanted to bring people from across Scotland's mainstreams together to protect Scottish values, saying they were threatened by the rise of populism. Fucking Jesus. Slippery Swinney also insisted that the SNP was a progressive political party that has taken bold action on equalities within our society, and also, and then again in quotations, given a welcome to people from other countries who have come to live in Scotland. Okay? the summit has been called to fall on the 23rd of April. We're all involved, all that have been invited, so all involved can express, and this is quotes again, can express solidarity amongst our shared values. And before I PTO to the other page, there's a few things to just like point out here, okay? First and foremost, one of the attacks that came off the back of this came from Ed Davies, of all people, the Liberal Democrat leader. And they had a conference in Inverness. I know, to my shame. They had a conference in Inverness and he insinuated or accused the SNP as well as Reform of apparently both playing from Trump's playbook of populism and nationalism, okay? So there's still this sort of undertone that the SNP are nationalists, okay? It's not exactly a hot take to point out that they're fucking not at this point, but regardless of that fact, when the likes of Slippery Swinney, and he isn't the first person that's done this from the SNP, I mean, we know this, but when they continuously talk about our values, it goes a long way to showcase, unfortunately, that as a society, the sort of concept of progressive ideology, left-wing politics, whatever you want to call it, it's become sort of so rubber-stamped as the norm within society that any pushback in any capacity, whether they're controlled opposition or otherwise, they're seen as a problem, a threat. They're seen as far-right, they're seen as fascist, they're seen as all the names under the sun because the status quo at present is progressivism. It's just unfortunate that that's the way that it seems to operate at this point. But to suggest, as the title of the article suggests, this is above party politics, but it's not above party politics, is it? Because in an idealistic democracy, right, the so-called far right would have a seat at the fucking table, wouldn't they? But they ain't getting a seat at the table. So it isn't above party politics. And on top of that, by extension, every single mainstream party in Scotland sings from the same hymn sheet. And that is including the fucking Tories, by the way. Anyway, it gets worse. Swinney said those values were about inclusion, about cohesion, and about bringing people together, and about welcoming the differences between us. Why is this has become the norm? Celebrating differences. There was always things that made people different within society. No neighbourhood is full to the brim of people who are identical, okay? But what they're really talking about here is, again, progressive politics. Okay, the LGBT, the sort of intersectionality worldview, etc., where there's all these different identificational labels that can be placed upon an individual. Okay, and anybody that pushes back against that, they're a problem. The differences between us. And on top of that as well, it's a sort of a self-own. Why is there so much emphasis on people's differences? They go on about trying to bring people together, but they spend a huge amount of time talking about what makes us different. So in their attempts to highlight our differences, they also say we should come together. Maybe stop highlighting the differences. That might make a bit of a difference, pardon the pun. And then it says he also stressed the importance of respecting, and this is quoted, respecting the equalities agenda and the perspective of LGBTQ communities and of being welcoming of immigrants. So again, if you've got any problem with any of these things or the aforementioned agenda, you're far right, you're a populist, you're this, you're that, you know. What are the everyday person who just can't be arsed with this crap? And then he's quoted again as saying, "My reason for calling the gathering together is to recognise the threat to some of the values that have always been part of the foundations of a Scottish society." When the fuck has this ever been the foundations of Scottish society? Seriously, riddle me that one, Slippery Swinney. Riddle me that one, anyone. When has this been the core crux of what made Scotland Scotland? I mean, we need to get past being afraid of labels. We need to get past being called, we need to get past being referred to as bigots and racists, Nazis and fascists and homophobic and transphobic and all the rest of these other gay little terms. Because the reality of the matter is, like, this is crap. It's nonsense. Nonsense. When this has ever been, historically, whether it was the Great Enlightenment or whether it was the Scots versus the fucking Danes and the Romans, etc., all the way to when the wars of Scottish independence, when was the core crux of what made Scotland Scotland about progressivism, etc.? I mean, come on. Then he goes on to say, so my intervention is not about party politics, my intervention is about community, it's about cohesion. It's about community and cohesion. And it's about party politics, apparently. It's about inclusion, etc. But yet you are deliberately excluding anybody who just has an opposing view from being able to allegedly join this fucking summit on the 23rd of April. As that's when it's supposed to be occurring. Mark my words, if it's live streamed or whatever, I'll be making a video on it at the time. But I mean, this crap. It finishes off by saying it's about bringing people together. Unless, of course, you're considered far right. Yeah. What do you think of John Swinney? Eh? Where's the birds? Honestly, man. Honestly.